Welcome back, ballroom dance friends. Today is going to be the final video in a little mini series we've been covering on ways you can increase the speed at which you retain what you learn and execute that on the comp floor. So as you know, there's nothing more frustrating than taking a great lesson and then practicing the next day and it's gone. And we learn in different ways. We have people that are more inclined to learn visually or tactile or mechanically. Maybe they're analytical. And we tend to fall back on that one area that's our sweet spot when we're learning. And it's a little bit lazy, guys, because you're going to learn a heck of a lot faster if you engage all the areas of your brain where you store ballroom dance memory. The more parts of the brain you engage, the more neural pathways you have that you can rely on when you're in that pressure situation, social dance, show, whatever, and get a reliable performance out of it. The area of the brain we're going to look at today is called the neocortex. So this is where we encode, store, retrieve general knowledge about dance. Okay. And so first, let me show you a little diagram of where this is inside of our skull. I'll be right back. So look at where the arrow is pointed. Okay, friends? So hopefully you saw it's kind of located up here. It was that turquoise area on that little diagram I made. So one way, for example, you take advantage of this is you actually memorize words, right? Heels, toes. I know my routine. I know the order. Follows. You tend to be very guilty of this. You do not take any advantage of all of this area of your brain when you're learning. And I get it. It's very easy as follow to rely on just tactile. Hey, I'm going to hang on. I'll learn my part that way. But friends, you're going to learn 10 times slower at least if you don't use all the areas. And this one for you follows, I have found in my experience is almost always crazy weak and probably the weakest of them all. You're going to need to make some deliberate choices in what you do outside of your lesson to use this to your advantage, okay? How does this come into play? Ideally, you know the names of all of your figures. You know the order of each figure in your routine. You know where it is on the floor spatially. This is all part of that neocortex memory, okay, guys? And I can't tell you how many follows, probably most follows in partnerships will come to me after each comp grousing about how their lead can't remember the routine when they themselves don't even know it when they're not under pressure. And it is my job as the follow to backlead a tiny bit, or if my lead prefers, give them a little verbal help when we get in a pickle in a comp, because they're busy driving the car, folks. They can't just go 60 miles an hour like your routine says. Sometimes they have to stop, start, and it can be really disorienting for them. And at that point, I kick in. And you and your partner need to agree how that's going to happen. But generally, I can back lead for 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, say through one figure, and then he's like, oh yeah, that's where we are. We get back on our routine. Or sometimes the lead utterly hates that, in which case you can give a verbal, hey, this is where we do our double reverse overspin. It's okay to talk on the floor as long as you're not, spacing out, chit-chatting the whole time, just to get back on the rails, friends. Honestly, guys, the floor craft is even harder when you're doing group flights with mixed levels of skill on the floor. Even worse when they put adults on the floor with kids. And even as a pro, I'm worried, like, gosh, am I going to ram into these kids and hurt them? So it really throws you off your focusing on what your choreo is, friends. This is normal, okay? I find championship level or Open Pro to be the easiest to navigate because everyone is pretty reliable. I know, for example, if I see them do a double reverse, where that thing is going to end and very likely what figures it's going to go into. It's a little bit like a box of chocolates. When you're on the floor with beginners, you don't know what they're going to do next. It might not even be allowed in the syllabus. So that takes a great deal more floorcraft, friends. So what I suggest doing is not riding your partner's coattails. And same thing, occasionally I'll run into a lead who relies on their follow if she's more of a manhandler. I don't recommend it follows. The judges can tell, but it does happen occasionally. But if everyone knows their entire routine, all the names of the figures, all the angles they should be, this is going to be a great help to you to doing well on the comp floor, performance floor, even social floor, where you should be doing little routines. It's going to be very secure feeling for me as a follow. If he just has a little routine that he does, even as a pro, I can follow anything, but I'd rather not focus on it. I'd rather go, I know it's coming next, and then I can chit chat with you. It is a social dance after all. It's not a competition in that case. So another way you can take advantage of that neocortex by memorizing your heels and toes. Another way we can key into this thing, say you're on an airplane on the way to your competition, or you're driving 4 hours to another city. Hey, whoever's in the passenger seat, literally write down the names of your routine in order, okay? When you're done doing that, use that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and literally draw out your routines and how they travel around the floor. Do they spin? They go this way, they go this way. It's gonna hardwire that neocortex much faster. It's just one more area you get to rely on that you don't have to micromanage when you're dancing under pressure, okay? Follows, I can't emphasize to you enough. You need to show up and be a co-pilot. Do not be a bump on a log. It just makes his job that much harder because not only now does he have to remember the routine and do the floor craft and think about his technical piece, he's got to think about your technical piece too. Hey, let's take that off of his plate. That's something I can not only do well, but I can help him a little bit with that floor craft, right? I can help him a little bit with that routine when we're under pressure. Also, it's important to communicate with your coach. It'll make your job easier, friends, if you communicate what your sweet spot is. Like, hey, I personally prefer to learn this way. I like to see the figures and copy you. In my case, I'm pretty visual. I like to see it and copy it. I also like to see it exaggerated wrong, because obviously I think I'm doing it right or I wouldn't be doing it that way. So that helps me learn a little faster. And then when they do teach you that way, do follow up with, okay, can you write this out in a diagram for me? They can do that in your lesson. Actually write out the routine and then you redo it later independently on your own at home, either as your homework to learn faster or on that airplane, in the car ride, whatever. Make sure to get that visual. Make sure to cover all those areas of the brain that we focused in your lesson, and then utilize that later in your practicing alone or going through it your head outside of your lesson. And you will learn, literally, guys, 100 times as fast if you do your homework. And take advantage of all those areas. If you missed my previous videos, I'm going to share a link in the description below to these other areas of the brain and what you can do, because every one of them is going to be a super good help. And you know what? It's free to do this stuff. It doesn't cost you anymore. Why not do that and learn 20 times as fast? So thanks so much for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I love your questions. Makes my job so much easier. And if you disagree with what I'm saying, if you have something to add, if you have a different experience, please feel free to comment below. I don't delete those comments. I love them. Though I am very experienced in the ballroom dance world, I am just one person, and I love everyone's stories. They're all helpful to all of us. So thanks for joining me. Happy dancing, and I look forward to seeing you in the morning. Bye, friends.